We'll get started here. We've got till 1 o'clock together to talk about solar, storage, and smart controls. And you might wonder what this does, how this belongs in a structures and systems, offshoot group. Well, the PV is part of the structure, and more figuratively, solar, storage, smart controls, we feel are destined to become part of the structure nationwide, not just in the California island, and part of what your buyers are going to expect. So we're going to take a forward-looking thought at it, hopefully provoke some thought for all of you. I'd like to thank Infinity Energy, who's the sponsor of this session. And JD, if you want to come join me on stage as well as a panelist, that'd be great. With us also is Dan Ross of Savant Power. Let's test your audio, Dan.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing?
Thanks for joining us. Where are you from, Dan?
I live in South Carolina, but I'm currently at our New York City Experience Center in downtown Manhattan.
Wow, living large.
Yeah, I'd rather be in Phoenix where it's probably a little warmer than it is here.
All right. And here is our panel. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. Dan, you want to start first?
Sure, thanks, Nick. Hey, everybody, I'm Dan Ross. I'm the Vice President of Sales at Savant Power. For many of you out there, Savant Power may be a new brand. We were a company founded in 2015 by the CEO of Savant Home, which is an integrated smart home company that you may be more familiar with. And then we also represent a third division of our company that I know you've all heard of, which is General Electric Lighting. And so we have Savant Power, Savant Home, and GE Lighting represented.
Thanks, Dan. How about you, JD?
Cool. Hi, everybody. JD Tofteland. I work with Infinity Energy, the Vice President of New Construction and Commercial there. Been at Infinity for about 18 months, came over with a couple of gentlemen over there in the corner that sort of make up our entire team. We're mostly an operations-based company, so I'm sort of the only sales guy with Kenny over there. So it's just the two of us. And then based in California, but sort of cover most of the U.S. As we've sort of seen solar get adopted across the nation.
So you're doing the installs of solar for builders as well as batteries?
Yep, install and battery, solar and battery both, where it makes sense.
Great, then you're the perfect reference to answer for us today. And I'm Nick Brown. I'm a California-based energy consultant. And it is a bit of an island we work in California. We've got our own energy code that now requires solar on all new homes. We're about 2 years into that stage of the energy code. So we are a bit of a lab for solar, aren't we?
Without a doubt.
So we'll be able to draw on our experience in California to maybe give you a preview of what it's like, likely to look like in your markets. And I want to start out with this email that I received from one of my clients the other night. Malibu, coastal Southern California, doing some pre-Thanksgiving cooking, and the power went out to the whole neighborhood. But because they were in a factory-built home equipped with solar and battery backup, they just kept on cooking while the rest of their neighbors lost power, and I'm sure were really frustrated. In California, these planned power shutoffs have become routine. Whenever the winds are forecast to be high and there's danger of a line falling and causing a fire, the utilities are preemptively shutting off power. So I think this is one of the trends that's going to drive adoption of solar and battery backup. We've, of course, got other options to back up our homes, standard fossil fuel generators that we've been using for a long time, but this panel will talk a little bit about why solar and battery might be a superior resiliency strategy for many of your homes. So 2 years in now to the California solar mandate, I thought we'd start with what that looks like. And JD, I'll ask you to share your experience next, but The Energy Code, Title 24, requires solar panels on all new single-family homes and multifamily buildings 3 stories or less. And it's the formula, the amount of solar, is based on the square footage of the unit, if single family, and the square footage and the number of units if multifamily. So it's a pretty simple formula. It gets spit out by the software, and that's what the builder has to put on that building. And it's part of the permit process now. So it's not a future permit, detailed to be figured out later anymore. It's an integral part of the design process. So that means the architects have to lay out the PV on the roof, think about orientation and tilt and structural support for that and all those details. And it's been a big transition for my client architects for sure. There are very few workable exceptions too. If the roof is heavily shaded by a neighboring structure or mature trees, that's a valid exception. Yep. If you're in snow zones with snow load that's significant enough, you can sometimes get out of it as well. But very few workable exceptions. And flash forward, the next code cycle has extended the solar mandate to non-residential buildings. So many of our newly built commercial structures are going to be required to install solar, and new for this segment, battery as well. So that was a big step ahead, and I know it's a step that our state of California is not ready for in terms of new non-res buildings. Many don't even know that's coming. On the battery side, I'll add, there's a compliance credit in California if you add a battery to your solar project that helps trade off against other factors in the performance modeling. So JD, I'll turn to you now. From your perspective, how has the first 2 years of the California solar mandate gone? What have we learned?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and all of that was terrific. I really think the note from the homeowner, that's really where the rubber sort of meets the road, and you start feeling like the code itself has helped fuel a better life for home buyers and a different life that probably didn't exist previously, right? The 2 years of the mandate have been interesting. Early on, we saw a big rush. So if you look back at permit data in California in late 2019, you saw a big rush of builders trying to pull permits to get in front of the new code that rolled out January 1 of 2020. And what we saw is a number of those permits actually transitioned into the new Title 24 code, not necessarily because of changes and they were forced to, but because we've started to see that the customers actually look for solar, and they actually are starting to have some more intelligent questions around what's in solar and what's being given out. There are really basically 2 ways to fund solar in the new home process. You can do cash just like all of your normal trades, and then you can go a financed route, and that piece comes with a monthly bill, right? And so you've started to see that shift of customers wanting to understand, how is the solar on my house? It's new, so is there a bill? Is there a monthly payment? That kind of stuff. And I think what it's done for the builder is taken something that has traditionally been a total pain, right? Any new addition outside of a normal trade, and you guys are working with 45 to 55 trades on a job site. Adding another trade is just another headache and another finger that gets pointed and another check that gets written and another trade that's late or missing, and those issues are prevalent in everything that we do in new home space. But specific to the mandate, it's really helped solidify the process, and we've started to see the builders that embraced the idea and took the strategic advantage of having solar and how they market it to really not only drive home sales, but customer satisfaction inside that, right? Like you start thinking about smart home, and I worked in the smart home space prior to solar, so I'm a big advocate of that. You start to get the homeowners that move in, and we're talking to basically every homeowner to make sure that they know how to use their solar system, they know how to power up their house, they know what the monitoring looks like, because it's a component that sort of gets overlooked by a lot of solar installers in the new home space, and it's a really cool touch point. Our customer success team that we have at Infinity, when they're talking to these homeowners, they're super excited about buying a brand new house because they just spent a lot of money and it's all brand new and it's all very exciting. But a lot of trades are sort of gone after that happens, right? You don't get you think about like a garage door opener from Chamberlain that has MyQ, or it's a smart garage door, but if the homeowner doesn't know, if the homeowner's not tech savvy, it doesn't necessarily get set up, right? And the same was true with solar for the most part. It's go out, you flip on a breaker, and everybody thinks solar is working, and that's kind of it. And what we've seen is we've been able to really get some incredible feedback for the builder and start to drive some of the customer satisfaction scores that they have, that you guys all have, frankly. And that homeowner experience, I don't think that we, as a trade, understand enough. And I was fortunate to, like I said, be in the smart home space previously. So, those setups are critical. And I saw this overwhelming desire for homeowners to want to understand the new house that they just spent a lot of money on. And, frankly, it's a piece of paper and a closing packet, right? And so I really think the mandate by creating the adoption across all builders has really allowed for you guys to do what you've always done, and that's innovate and be creative and find ways to differentiate yourselves in a largely pretty crowded market space. And I think that the success that we're seeing in California, we did a boardroom talk a couple hours ago, and there are people in Oklahoma that are curious about solar, and you think Oklahoma, that's why would you do that? But there is some real advantage to that, and I think those mandates, as much as they are a pain to implement at the beginning, once you get over that pain point and it starts to become something that's a strategic advantage, we've seen a lot of really cool success stories, just like your email, right? I think, homeowners that are able to have that independence and feel good about the house that they bought and then also have it work for them. I think it's such a cool story to see, and it's really what sort of makes this the most exciting piece for us, right? Is to give homeowners some flexibility that they didn't know they could have.
Okay. Let's do a show of hands. This morning, you guys were a lively group. I expect the same today. How many of you are installing solar pretty much standard on many of your projects? How about how many of you are offering it as an option? Okay, so very little experience with solar in the room. Same with battery storage, I assume? Yeah. Okay, so that's where we're starting. And geographically distributed group too.
Yeah, for sure.
As you said,
yeah.
Quite a few from Oklahoma.
Sorry to pick on you.
Sorry about your head coach, yeah. But I also wanted to share this. These curves look sneakily similar, don't they? The price trend on solar on the left, the price trend on battery so far on the right. So it does look like battery costs are going to come down in much the same manner that solar costs have plummeted. Yeah, very interesting trend. And I expected battery storage to be a more difficult product to come down on price than solar. But so far, following a similar trend.
Yeah, it's interesting because it feels sort of chicken or the egg, but when you look at solar and start to kind of get the idea of how all of that's based on volume, right? It's all based on build capacity, and you see the early, 2010 and solar in 2013 with batteries, the prices are exaggerated, not because the cost of the equipment, but because of the cost of the startup, right? You think about anything anybody does to start, it gets capital intensive. And so I really see where people invest in something early on, it really starts to drive the long tail curve and drive down the cost, and those advantages spiral, because if you buy this for $1 and you maintain the value, if the cost drops out of it, now all of a sudden the profit becomes relevant and it becomes a victory, and it's an interesting piece because it's really controlled by the consumer, right? If the consumers buy more, the cost goes down, profitability goes up, and everybody wins.
And that's certainly been California's approach. Put in incentives first to drive volume and then make it part of the code. How many of you guys have incentives in your local markets for installation of solar other than the federal tax credit? Yeah. Well, they may be coming soon to a community near you, so keep your ears to the ground, because that really is a key to getting it going. Dan, when we lost you earlier, I was asking if you'd seen an uptick in demand for your smart controls in California as riding the coattails of the upswing in solar.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Yeah, we sure did. And again, when we were founded as an energy automation division back in 2015, we were kind of predicting the future of energy automation, energy storage, with where we saw solar and renewables going. And so as a manufacturer, we spend a lot of time and a lot of energy working with builders on trying to get products specified in, smart products specified or standardized into the homes. And so when California came out with Title 24 and basically mandated a standardization of renewable energies, it immediately created an uptick for our business in the control side of those renewable energies. And so we had a couple, what I would call, leading builders that realized, hey, we have to add solar onto our homes now. How do we excite the homeowners about solar, what they can do with it, and what it does for them? And in terms of energy storage, as your email noted, Malibu, in the Savant world, a lot of our customers are high net worth. And it does very much seem like almost every house in California is now $1 million or more. So imagine making $1 million or $5 or $10 million investment, and then having rolling brownouts, climate events that shut that $10 million home down, or even that $1 million home down for periods of time. And solar doesn't do it by itself. Solar is awesome. It's a great way to reduce your energy consumption, be green, work and sell some energy back to the utility, which can no longer meet the demand of the grid across the country. But without energy storage, that solar gets turned off when the grid gets turned off. And so what we saw a huge uptick was in California was homeowners looking for storage in combination with their PV solution, because they learned the hard way that when the grid went down because of a scheduled brownout, because of a climate event or whatever it may be, they thought they had some level of safety and security because they had solar panels. Most consumers don't know that those solar panels are essentially useless when the grid is turned off. And so we saw this huge uptick in demand for energy storage systems across California. And really up until the winter storm in Texas last February, California was by far the leading market for Savant Power. And now, in Texas, where energy is very inexpensive, you're talking 6 to 12 cents a kilowatt hour, where, California, you're in 30 to 40 probably. Nobody cared about energy storage or solar in Texas. And I can tell you, after that storm last year, it's become the second hottest market for our business in terms of incoming requests for not only energy storage and solar, but the ability to control and manage that energy usage within that home. And so that's one of the things that, as a manufacturer and a software and a controls company, is we want to work directly with the builders and saying, okay, now that you have to do these things, right? You have to put solar on your home. It sounds like soon enough, utilities or states are going to start requiring some level of storage. So how do we control that? How do we turn that into an advantage for the builder when they're selling a home or competing to sell a home to a new home buyer?
Yeah, and you brought up a good point I wanted to make sure we wove in. Most Americans at this point have experienced an episode like this, whether it's in ERCOT territory, California, we've been doing it for years, or the New York area with recent storms, Southeast too. So it really drives the demand for these resiliency solutions where they didn't exist before.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I live in Austin. I'm originally from South Dakota, so it was funny. The winter storm hit Sunday midnight. You're going to bed, power goes out, and I'm used to that happening. It happens. 6-8 hours later, the power's back on. Everything's good. By Monday at noon, my laptop had died, my phone was dying, and there was still no power. And I was like, well, maybe I guess I should check. And sure enough, they did a really great job of outlining, hey, your area is out of power. Like, sorry, but no ETA. Go to look for a hotel, and everything was booked. So everybody just went and booked a hotel to be safe, but nobody could go. So I have a 4-wheel drive truck, and like I said, I'm from South Dakota, so I'd seen it snow before. And we went door to door to hotels and couldn't get in. And not only, some of the hotels had a vacancy, but they also didn't have power. And so they were like, yeah, we couldn't open the door. So like their lock system wouldn't work. So they're like, yeah, we give you a room and you can be warm, but we can't even get you into the room even if you wanted to. So, to further the point of, what we're seeing basically across the board is, the evolution of a home buyer and the evolution of a consumer market that now understands not only what's possible, but what, they've all experienced a motivational event, right? Where right. I was calling Shane saying, if I can find a generator, can you FaceTime me and show me how to hotwire my main service panel so that I
right.
can, at least get a air furnace on, right? And
right, but a home builder can offer that benefit at much easier than someone trying to retrofit it. So there seems to be fertile ground for that, selling that benefit.
Well, without a doubt, and I think in doing that, that's where the differentiation comes in.
Right.
And for those of you that are here, you are leaps and bounds ahead of some of your competition that just are reticent to that empowerment of a customer, right? And I think you've seen the brands that have stuck around over time. They've really gone to empowering their customers. They've made the shift. You look at Best Buy. They've completely transitioned everything that they've done historically from being behind the scenes and pushing to now being arm in arm with a customer and bringing them in. And I think that's the overarching benefit to some of the mandates that have happened, right? And not just in solar, but smart home and energy efficiency updates. I think that's been something that's been really cool to see homeowners get excited about, where 10 years ago it was so unknown that it was like scary.
Yeah, I'm starting to see homeowners, especially remodeling homeowners, who want to be that island in the neighborhood where neighbors can come by and charge their phones in case of an outage.
Yeah.
They want to be, and that's solar and storage. I'm starting to see home builders in planned communities, give me a second, who are putting it on the community center. You can think about that as a vital shelter-in-place strategy. Even if the homes don't have solar and storage, that community center can.
Yeah, and JD, I was going to pile on to your comments. I had left Austin, Texas, right before that storm.
Congrats.
And moved into a more rural part, actually, of South Carolina, outside of Charleston. And so we think about California as being that progressive state in terms of renewables. But at the end of the day, the progression of renewables across the country is inevitable. It's not going to end with California and now Arizona and Nevada and soon to be New York and Connecticut and other states. It's gonna cross the country. And even where I live today, the utility is already transitioned to a time of use pricing model, right? So they're charging more for energy when I need it versus in the middle of the night when I don't need it. And to your point about I was still am in the smart home business for over a decade. You were there too, and I look back when 2014, 2015, really when we started working with, Tech Home Summit and the LBAs of the country and trying to standardize smart home tech. And the builders were very much saying, I don't want to spend the money. I'm not sure what the right solution is. There's Zigbee, there's Z-Wave, there's Bluetooth, there's Wi-Fi. There was all this confusion in the marketplace, but you did have this set of builders that took the initiative and said, I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to offer it to my clients. And then there was other builders that said, I'm just going to wait and see where this goes, right? And so those builders that kind of stepped up and said, I'm going to actually figure out what the right smart home solutions are to incorporate into my homes. That's where we are with energy right now. The reason why we have an energy division is because we believe smart energy is going to be driving the smart home of the future, not the other way around. The days of who has the best smart thermostat or the best smart door lock are over, right? If you're not standardizing that or offering that to your homeowners, then the day after they move into your home, they're going to Lowe's or Home Depot or Amazon and they're ordering smart home equipment. It is standard in every single new home today, whether it's standardized or whether it's added in the day after they move in. And so we're at this inflection point today with that same issue with energy now. Now you have solar. Now energy is the top of consumers' mind. A smart thermostat is no longer the top of a consumer's mind. How they manage, control, reduce their energy costs is top of a consumer's mind. So it's a great opportunity for builders to leverage that. They can differentiate themselves by saying, hey, not only are we putting solar on the home, but look at all this great information that you can get to understand, how much energy your home is consuming and how much energy your home is producing. So it's a great time to be a builder if you're forward thinking about adapting and starting to specify, whether it's as a standard or as an upgrade, smart energy solutions. The days of the smart home solutions or connected device solutions, that's behind us, right? That's every home, but now it's okay, what are we doing for smart energy solutions in the new construction market? Whether it's on the West Coast or the East Coast, I think it's relevant everywhere.
Yeah, I don't think many home buyers are impressed by builders who install Amazon Alexa standard anymore.
Yeah.
So question for you two, builders you work with who are doing solar right, JD, what are they doing? What are those best practices?
I think there are a couple of things that to do any sort of advancement right, you have to look at internally first, right? You have to make sure that the builders and you guys are having somebody that is a subject matter expert that understands what's going on, that can then cascade the information internally. Because I think whether it's smart home, whether it's energy storage, whether it's solar, any real advancement inside the building process, having that person internally that everybody can go to as a resource, I think is step number one. And then connecting the information to the sales centers is probably the biggest opportunity, even still today in California. There are a lot of sales agents that unintentionally mishear information about somebody else's system or somebody else's offering and pass it on to the potential home buyers. And those two gaps create a difficult customer experience to turn around after the close of the house.
You said builders don't want to talk about solar when we talked, right?
They don't. It's interesting to see. It's sort of this like taboo thing that we're putting solar on the house, and it's like, yeah, it's up there. And you guys, anyways, we got granite countertops. We've got we can upgrade your fixtures. We've got this really great faucet package, and you see that that reticence to have the conversation be detrimental. And I'm sure that in the smart home space, it's something very similar to say, oh yeah, we've got a smart thermostat and we've got this Wi-Fi ready hot water heater, and we'll just, and then the sales rep moves on because they think that granite countertops are sexier than differentiation. And a lot of that is, as a sales guy, I came up in sales. you don't talk about the things you don't know and you don't understand. And so doing solar right, I think those are critical components. One of the other things that somebody brought up, Norman brought up in his experience in California is being planful with your architect, right? Being planful in the design and taking away the idea that it's an afterthought, right? If we can work with architects and we can work with building consultants and we can partner with other trades, smart home, roofing, and really drive at the electricians, really drive at creating a true system, a true home system that integrates well, that's prepared for the future. Those are really low cost, high leverage points for a home builder to differentiate their offering. Being battery ready might mean $200, right? It might mean, running a couple of Smurf tubes in the wall, or it might mean taking your main service panel and moving it from the back of the garage to the side of the garage, where the electrician or the solar or other trades can easily tap in, and that might be a small change in the design, but if you do it at the design stage, it's a critical win that allows for adoption down the road, where we've worked with some home builders that are working with their architects, and they're just like they do with solar on the roof, they're calling out a solar specified area. They're putting in those options to say post-close, hey, if you want to put an EV charger in, this is where we think it'll go. If you want to put in batteries, this is where we think they should go. Yeah. And those are low cost, high impact returns that drive that conversation in a really positive way to say, hey, look, we've thought about all this stuff. Right. That's why you should buy our houses. Everything we do is like this. And here's just an example.
Could we have that slide up? Yeah, so these were the things that came out in our discussions, building the homes to be battery ready, all electric ready. That is, the cooktop can be converted to induction at a later date. The furnace can be converted to a heat pump at a later date. The gas water heater can be converted to an electric heat pump water heater at a later date. Those are all things required in California now, as is the EV ready and the battery ready. And so even if it's not required by your code, these are future-proofing advantages that a builder can sell to a home buyer.
Yeah, the ADU thing is actually interesting, and I think that came up in our conversation. I forgot about it till right now, but we have a builder in Sacramento that is building homes and specifying architects are throwing a dotted line and pulling some utilities, and they are pre-running water and power to a corner of the lot, and they estimate that they're in it for less than $1,000. And that ADU ready message that you can bring your own ADU, you can build one out back. In California has been, it's one of the biggest, hottest markets, right? So,
right.
Modular ADU markets, you guys are seeing them pop up everywhere. The tiny home, that back workshop area has been, a huge new marketplace. But we were talking probably 3 months ago, and they sold 187 unit subdivision in just over the course of 2 quarters. And largely they attributed it to a couple of advancements, and that was one of their biggest takeaways. Was they did nothing but draw some dotted lines on paper and pull some utilities to just be helpful. And the home buyer feedback was that those were one of the driving forces, and it cost them almost nothing.
Because it opens up their minds to a future rental unit or a age in place, granny unit.
Yeah.
So it makes that buyer interested in paying more for the home. And for those of you who are out of state, the California state legislature passed legislation saying that local jurisdictions may not inhibit construction of these ADUs or accessory dwelling units unreasonably in California as a way to generate additional housing units. 13,000 of them permitted in California last year, which is almost 20% of all new housing units. So it's a big deal. The right trades, you talked about that in our discussions too. I know when solar started, builders were asking their roofers to put the solar panels on. Has that stuck?
No, you know, there's an interesting dichotomy of what we're seeing. We're seeing there's still a lot of regional, national roofing companies that are doing solar. And we've seen, you know, Shane and I were just talking to a couple of builders down in SoCal that, you know, have gone to a local builder and they're trying to piecemeal it together because it feels easier to have one person to go to and you know, seems like it could be something that, you know, should be simple. And, you know, when you start talking about anything that you're doing, whether it's building a house to putting a Lego set together, I think that it's really important to understand that you can put something together without the instructions and it may turn out okay and it might look great and it might even work. But having experts that are not only experts in what you're having done, but experts in your specific trade. We talked earlier, being a builder and building a house is a unique job set. Not, you know, I can't tell you how many homeowners I talk to that are saying they're gonna go build their next house and they're gonna be the general contractor. And, you know, it's one of the owners of our company is building a house, and he, you know, 18 months ago he said he was going to be the GC, and I told him, I was like, this is the dumbest thing you're ever going to do. Go hire somebody that knows what they're doing, because the details matter. Building a house the right way matters. And, you know, sure enough, like a month ago, I got the yeah, you were right, this sucks.
Hire one of these guys.
Yeah, and so, you know, using the right folks to do a job, it's critical. It's bringing a sledgehammer rather than a nail hammer, bringing a, you know, the right tool. And I really look at our trades as that, right? And we partner with a lot of trades, a lot of roofers, a lot of electricians that, you know, have done solar that are saying, I just want to go back to doing what I love doing, and that was roofing. So how do we do that, right? And so that partnership, I think, is really critical, because, you know, the further down the path you go with adoption and the bigger it becomes as part of your offering, the more important it is to have those experts doing it. You know, I think about smart home, and as we kick it over, you know, we were trying to have electricians do smart home stuff, you know, 10 years ago, and you know, that's one of the reasons that the adoption sucked, is there's not the experience, the customer doesn't get that end experience. And so, you know, with Savant, I'm certain that that's a critical component as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dan, I'll throw it to you here. This was your photo of a fully tricked out Savant Power system. Do you want to explain what you're doing with these systems and what the various components are?
Yes, definitely. Thank you. So first, a little show and tell. You guys probably can't see that. I don't know how well you can see this right here, but this is a smart breaker that Savant and Savant Power developed years ago. And you know, some of our forward-thinking builders, especially in California, even a couple of years ago, started standardizing this when they added solar onto their homes. Why? Because it monitors the energy consumption of the home, and it controls the circuit breaker. Right? So it controls the energy flow through the main distribution panel or a sub panel in the home. And so on the previous slide, as you're talking about, you know, electrical vehicle chargers, you know, why would you want to control the electrical vehicle charger? You know, you plug your Tesla in and you walk away, you go in the house and you go to bed, and your Tesla's charged by 9 p.m. But then you have that EV charger plugged in using energy until you get up and unplug it at 8 o'clock in the morning. And so a great use case for basic energy, smart energy controls is putting a single smart breaker into the home, whether it's EV ready, whether you want to control, you know, some of the circuits or non-essential loads in the home, or your hot water heater, things like that. It's a single electrician installed product that can reduce the energy consumption of electric heavy devices. And as you guys have already mentioned, homes are going more electric, right? That's not going away. And so now, as we see 10 to 20% of electricity costs in the home being vampire energy, meaning just wasted energy that's not being used for essential needs, is now we have a way to control that and reduce that. Now going into a battery ready and a battery storage system, we very much promote the idea of for builders to getting a home battery ready. We see luxury builders specifying it in, but as you start to get into production, the cost just doesn't make sense, right? It's not a lot of builders standardize a $12,000 or $20,000 generator, just like they don't standardize a complete energy storage system yet. Certainly, we have builders that make homes battery ready, and then they offer an energy storage system as an upgrade, just like they offer upgraded countertops and fixtures and you name it. And so as what we look at in this image here is, our flagship product is being the smart breaker. And the first thing you should notice is that that's a standard electrical panel. I don't care if you're using, if your trades are using Eaton, I don't care if they're using ABB or GE panels, I don't care if they're using Schneider Homeline or Schneider QO. We make one of these for all of those panel types, right? So we are panel agnostic. Again, we're trying not to mess with your trades and mess with your business. We're trying to make it extremely easy for this to be adapted. First thing that you see is you have the main distribution panel with a handful of smart breakers controlling some set of loads, right? And in our luxury homes, if it's a 600 amp main distribution panel, we may control every damn load in that entire 10,000 square foot home. In smaller production homes and some of our utility demand response programs, there's just one or two smart breakers. Regardless of whether it's 500 smart breakers or 2 smart breakers, it's a significant value add to the homeowner to have a smart energy management system in the home. So the first thing is, you guys are familiar with main circuit breakers, main distribution panels. The only difference here is you've got some smart breakers plugged in. To the rest of that, so that would get your home battery ready, right? And on the left, you just have the Savant controller, which on the next slide, you guys will see a little bit of the user experience that comes along with that around the energy data, what's happening in my house, how much am I consuming, how much am I generating, what's the state of my energy in my home. But to the right of that, if you were to add an energy storage system, and we've developed a couple different solutions, and about 6 months ago, we had a realization that creating a big container wasn't the way to go. And we had gone pretty far down that road of creating a containerized solution, but we realized that the energy space is simply rapidly progressing. There's a lot of players. There's a lot of inverters, there's a lot of battery cells, and the technology is advancing in a positive way, not only because the costs are going down, but because the technology is increasing, right? Instead of lithium ion that, Tesla has used for years, it's a flammable product, and a lot of AHJs and a lot of people don't want to put flammable things near their home. So then now you see this progression to LiFePO4 chemistry, lithium iron phosphate 4, which is a non-flammable, safe battery chemistry. And so that's what we use here. These are Fortress Power battery cells. There's 10 other companies that make LiFePO4 battery cells. And then you have hydrogen cells coming to market. You have saltwater cells coming to market, right? So we're not in the battery cell chemistry world. We're in the controls world of saying, hey, whichever battery you decide to go with, we want to be able to manage when and how much of that stored energy is distributed throughout the house. And so in addition to the batteries you see at the bottom, you have the Generac automatic transfer switch. And again, what an automatic transfer switch is, an automatic transfer switch to us. That's just telling us if the grid is on or if the grid is off. And if the grid goes off, we automate the energy in that home and say, uh-oh, something bad has happened. How are we going to keep the home powered? What's essential? What's non-essential? How long do we need to keep that home powered for? And again, this goes big into solar. So, a big differentiator between fossil fuel generators, and I don't think those are going anywhere anytime soon, but generators are in a standby mode 99.9% of the time until a critical event happens and they turn on. And if they've been serviced, they work. But if they haven't been serviced, maybe they don't work when you need it the most. The nice thing about an energy storage system, which is essentially what you see here, is batteries, a battery inverter, in this case it's a Schneider that's highlighted here, and an automatic transfer switch. It could be a myriad of companies. We're pretty agnostic in terms of the control space. We want these companies to keep innovating, and we're going to integrate with them. So whatever you as the builder choose to use is something that we can work with. But think about a critical situation where, we talked about Texas, the grid is down for a number of days. You have solar on your house, awesome. So that solar can refill the batteries. The batteries can power the home at night when there's no sun. And then when the sun comes back out the next day, even though the grid's not down, the solar can begin powering the home and in addition, refill the batteries to power that home the next night. And so that's great for a grid outage, right? Now you have an energy storage system that's essentially doing what a generator would do, which is powering the essential loads of the home during an extended outage. But there's way more value than just that critical need, which is what you see happening with time of use pricing, the issues with the grid and the ability to provide energy across the grid. Is now you can schedule, so take myself in South Carolina, between 3 and 7 p.m., my energy costs twice as much as it does after 9 p.m. So I can simply schedule my batteries to disperse between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m., eliminating that really high cost of energy, especially in the summertime. That's every day. And so a big advantage of a battery storage system in combination with solar is that you use it every single day, not like a generator where it's really just sitting in standby mode, waiting for a critical situation to happen. Now, again, we are not anti-generator. Generators are a positive thing. Our battery solutions actually have a connection so that a generator can connect right into our battery storage system and refill the batteries, or in addition, provide additional power to the home. But really, the flagship is the smart breakers. And then whether it's in a big container or whether it's what we call this flat pack design here, whether it's broken apart, you've got your batteries, you've got your inverter taking that DC power and converting it to AC for the home. And then you've got an automatic transfer switch reading whether the grid is on or whether the grid is off. The nice thing about this,
I want to go to the next slide, but keep the mic. Because you talked about how do we demonstrate the value of this system to the home buyer, and I think only an engineer is going to love that setup in his garage, but these homeowner apps are really going to drive the value of the benefit, right? Can you talk to what's on the screen here?
Yeah, definitely. And so that was one of our biggest challenges is, we are very well known in the integrated home space, low voltage installers, but, electricians weren't going to deal with the complexity of smart home. And so the nice thing is electricians know how to install all of that hardware. That's not difficult for them. They don't have to be a master electrician. This is, whether it's installing a smart breaker or mounting a battery or an inverter on a wall, it's standard operating procedure for them day in and day out. But making the system smart is not something that they've been familiar with. And so the big effort for us was developing a new tool, which we call the Savant Power and Light application. It is specifically a tool for electricians. Whether they have an Android phone or an iPhone in their pocket, they can activate and set up that system. They don't need training. They don't need to fly across the country and go to a training course like they do with a fully Savant integrated smart home system or a very complex system. This is a device that's in their pocket. They download an app and through Bluetooth in their phone. Now, if they still have an old school flip phone or Nextel beeper, they're going to have to upgrade their phone. But any Android or iOS, as long as it's in the pocket of that electrician, they can automate the energy of that home, and they can set it all up directly from their device, direct technical support if they run into any issues. So the biggest thing was just make it easy for the trade, make it easy for the electrician. As JD mentioned earlier, we don't want to push another trade into your business because that usually creates some levels of dysfunction. We want to enable the trades that you all have existing and make this a value add. And then on the right, which is what Savant does best in class and is kind of world renowned for, is the homeowner experience, right? The electrician setup experience needs to be different than the homeowner's experience. So what you see on the right is a quick view of a dashboard, right? It's telling the customer, this is what your consumption is. This is how much energy your home is using. Currently it's producing this much from solar. You have this much energy stored in battery. You're pulling this much from the grid. These are your top consumers, right? Your EV charger, your hot water heater, if those items are on. So it's providing meaningful energy data in a digestible way for any consumer, whether they're an energy newbie or they're an advanced energy expert. We're displaying that information in a very convenient and easy to use way.
It really does look good. We've got about 8 minutes left, so I think I'd like to open it up to questions here, if there are any. If not, we'll keep droning on, but two experts to ask here if you want to.
Not all at once.
All right. Maybe this will jog some questions then. Tell us about this Blue Heron project, Dan.
Yeah, perfect. So as I mentioned earlier, right now I'm sitting in our New York City Experience Center, and this is open for any builder, for any trade in New York. I would have been presenting from in there, but it is a lab, and so there's a lot of communication traction going on in there. But we have a full energy lab here in New York at our Experience Center. Any of you guys can go to savant.com and schedule either a virtual or in-person tour of this facility. And what you see as an image here is our brand new West Coast Experience Center for Savant and Savant Power, just outside of Las Vegas. And again, you can tour this facility. It's about a 15,000 square foot luxury home, fully automated with smart home tech and smart energy. Every single electrical load in this home is controlled via a smart breaker, as well as it's backed up with the large energy storage system. So this entire $25 million home can be off grid for extended periods of time if it chooses to be. It can automate when its energy comes on and when its energy goes off in terms of circuit level control. We partnered with a great developer called Blue Heron, who actually built the house. And so it's a great facility to come in and tour and see what's possible with smart energy solution. Now, obviously, we're showing it on a large scale here, right? This is a $20+ million home. It has the largest residential solar array in the state of Nevada. And it's done very cleanly, right? If you just drive up to the home, it's not like solar panels are in your face. It's very well designed. And that's another thing when you talk about the aesthetics of the structures and systems that you're putting on the home, is there's been a lot of advancements in terms of solar panel technology. And so we have to get over that thought of solar panels are ugly, because they're not, and they can be designed structurally into a home to where they're almost invisible. And so anyway, this is just an incredible facility. Think about it. The actual, someone did come in and purchase this home, and they will be living in it in a few years after it's done with our Experience Center. But we can, if they're not there, they can put it into an eco mode, right? And look at all those lights outdoors that are consuming energy, and all the pool pumps and spa pumps and you name it. A single button, right? And they can throw that entire 20,000 square foot property into an eco mode and reduce 60% of the energy consumption. And so although we're showing it here on a very large scale, we also do this on a very small scale. So if you're building 1,500 to 2,000 square foot homes, it's the same concept, just on a smaller scale versus what you see here.
Amazing, and available for rent to all our conference goers, right?
Did you have a question?
Go ahead.
A question for you. Experience with solar shingles for the roof versus panels, and the developments in that, and where are you guys seeing that heading?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So right now there's basically Tesla. They're way ahead of the curve. There have been a number of other companies that have come out with some, what would you'd consider to be a solar panel that is really low inset. So GAF has one. Experience-wise, the cost benefit doesn't exist today, right? it's the same across the board with everything that we're talking about. The more that they get used, the lower the cost will become and the better the product is. What I've seen is some complexity around install, but once they're installed, they're a beautiful product. And so, we're Tesla One Roof certified, so I mean, it's an option. It just becomes difficult. Basically, Tesla, the way they explain the cost and how they put it together is, if you're doing a retro roof, they're about 25% more expensive, but that includes tear off, it's residential pricing versus what you guys are doing from a builder perspective where you're doing a new roof and even builder solar. You're probably almost tripling the cost of that envelope. And from a beautification standpoint, to your point, I just don't feel like it's an ugly thing anymore. I think solar can be ugly. I think, there's some choices that you can do to make solar ugly, silver frames and that kind of stuff. But, if you look at this, so you go look at this house, you can be on the second floor and look out over the first floor, and you're seeing a black on black panel that is elegantly designed. It's close to the roof. It's, it just doesn't stand out as something that detracts from the home. And even on a pitched roof, right? The way we design is, if you've got a minimum number or whatnot, we try to use a different size solar panel so we can get an even number and make it look like a square, right? And I think that's, all homeowners really want is to know that they're getting a good quality product that isn't detractive. And as long as you're doing that, I think it then becomes about cost.
Are those solar tiles readily available?
Yeah, they're readily available. They're doing a number of homes right now in California, and the hardest part is it's a piece by piece system. So it really is like buying a complex Lego set still. So they haven't quite figured out the standardization of all of it. Every tile is a Tesla tile. So if you imagine the entire roof, if you've got, a cut up roof or a cricket or, some interesting hips and ridges, you start looking at, 400 or 500 different pieces to put together a roof. It can be complicated.
Yeah. We do a lot of simple things like, it's coming up, it depends on space and where you're building and things like that, but just a little bit of solar on top of the garage or carports now, almost this clear or solar topped carport drive under, which is super relevant in places like Phoenix. We've seen the same issues, JD, with the Tesla tiles, as either they're hard to get or hard to design from a cost perspective.
Yep.
But there's more out of these, like these black on black are I believe, are Solaria panels.
Yep, they're Solarias.
Yeah, Solarias. And so the production out of the panels, as we were looking at probably the curves earlier about, the costs have been going down on panels, but the production has been going up significantly. Now that will probably start to plateau out eventually here, but you're getting a better look and a higher performing solar panel today than you ever were in the past.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
I'll close with a case study then, right here in our backyard, Phoenix. Mandalay Homes is a builder here in the Phoenix area, and they recently completed this Jasper community that I think provides a useful look forward for us. 2,900 homes in Prescott. And when you aggregate all the solar panels on those homes, it adds up to a big power plant. And they were able to work with the local utility to sell it as such, as a power plant that the utility could draw on in times of grid stress. And the batteries involved in the homes can take that extra solar production, extra wind production over the course of seasons and be a real asset to the utility. And as a result, they were able to monetize, to convert the value out of those solar and battery systems to an extent beyond just what the homeowner sees. So it was really interesting, and of course they paired it with efficient building envelope and systems too, starting the right way with reducing the load first and then adding renewables.
Both the builder and the homeowner in this project participate financially in the windfalls. If the utility pulls from the battery system, they both receive monetization from it. It's a really cool project, and they're working on, I think, 3 other communities with APS.
Yeah, and JD, and Nick, that's a great point. I mean, the utility side of this is a huge advantage for the builders out there. If you're starting to add solar or energy storage, work with your local utilities. At Savant Power, we have an entire utility side of our business, just working with utilities and builders on piloting and doing communities like this. So there's a lot of rewards financially to a builder as well as to the homeowner to allow the utility to gain access to that excess energy that's being created in that community so they can disperse it amongst the grid in which their power plants can no longer support.
Yep.
Well, that wraps up what we had planned for you, and we are out of time. I think Nancy has some announcements to tie things up here, and then we'll hang around for questions after if you have any.
Thanks, everybody.